The following program is being brought to you on the Voice America Business Channel. For more information about our network and to check our additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericabusiness.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the following program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.
Good morning. Welcome to Magnet Investing with Jordan Kimmel, the show that will take you through the ever-changing world of investing for a profit. Now here's the host of Magnet Investing, Jordan Kimmel.
And good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Magnet Investing with me, your host, Jordan Kimmel. And over the last 7 years, we've actually brought on the leading market strategists, investment professionals, authors, and even economists. But today we're going to do something that's a special treat for our listeners. We're going to roll all of it into one. We all know that business and economics and investing is inseparable from the world of politics. It's really a great pleasure to bring on Ziad Abdelnour. He's the author of the new book, Economic Warfare. He's the president and CEO of Blackhawk Partners in New York City. Ziad, first of all, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure, Jordan. It's my pleasure to be here.
Well, here's the great news for our listeners, Ziad. I know you carved out an entire hour to share your views. I think that despite having a tremendously successful private equity investment management firm in New York, I think this year being an election year, with your new book out, Economic Warfare, I know you've dedicated a lot of time to sharing your important views and messages. We'll get into the market. We'll get into the book. But first, I wanted to tell our listeners, I read the book cover to cover just this month. I thought it was fantastic. It's a story, it's a little romantic story of a guy who fell in love, came to New York, and became enormously successful, but is absolutely determined to fight the corruption of Wall Street, to fight the corruption in Washington. And what I'd love you to do for just a couple of minutes, without being shy, Ziad, give us a little bit of your history coming to the United States and the early part of your career before you started Blackhawk, if you could.
Yes, absolutely. Shy is not in my dictionary, Jordan. You know that.
Okay, let it fly.
Exactly. Well, I came to the United States in 1982. In the midst of Lebanon civil war, and it was pretty tough. In the 80s, Wall Street was very clubby, and I basically started my career. I did the management training program at Chase. At that time, it was David Rockefeller's bank. Realized after 1 year that banking is not for me, too boring. Went and did my MBA at the Wharton School, University of Pennsylvania. Graduated in 84. Then I joined Drexel Burnham. The firm that was a pioneer in issuing and commercializing junk bond financing for leverage buyouts and acquisitions and hostile takeovers, etc.
Exciting time right there, too.
Exciting time. That was the time to be in the 80s. The 80s is the LBO time, and Drexel Burnham was the place to be.
Right. And the leaders.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The leader under the leadership of Michael Milken, who I believe really is still, despite all what was said and done about him, one of the biggest financiers of the 20th century. I really believe that the two biggest financiers of the 20th century were J.P. Morgan at the turn of the century and Mike Milken at the end of the century, who totally changed the financial landscape. Anyway, to come back to that, so I worked for Drexel from 84, 85 till 1990, till the demise of Drexel Burnham. The U.S. government put Drexel Burnham out of business for some technicalities, really minor technicalities when you compare it to what's happening today. Absolutely minor. It is what it is, and Drexel Burnham was put out of business. And I decided after Drexel Burnham was put out of business, a firm that was making around $4 billion in profits in 1988 dollars, that, it's like Germany trying to put Deutsche Bank out of business. Your biggest capitalistic firm,
right,
putting it out of business. I smelled, this was very wrong, and I decided then, Jordan, never ever to work for a big Wall Street firm, because you're not in control of anything. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, I realized there are two kinds of people in this world: those in charge and those in control. Lots of people in charge, but they're not in control of anything. They have titles, they work for big firms, etc., but they're not in control of anything. They cannot even come close to writing the book I wrote. Because if anybody writes this kind of book on Wall Street, he'll be fired from his job the next day, even if he's the president and CEO of a big Wall Street bulge bracket firm.
Right. And so let me jump in here for a second, Ziad, because you said something super important. And the whole concept here is that in investment and in world, knowledge is power. And this whole show has been about empowering investors so that they don't blame a broker, they don't blame their neighbor, they actually take control. And I believe that your book is about providing the knowledge and giving people the insight to take personal responsibility and create wealth.
My book, Jordan, is about solutions. It's not about problems. Lots of books that have been written about the crisis, they bitch and moan and talk about the problems. Very few propose or have solutions. Not even our candidates, for Congress, for the Senate, for the House, or for the presidency. They do not have solutions. They're trying to say something that's politically correct to please the people. And the solutions are band-aid solutions. They're not radical solutions. In times like this that we're going through, we need radical solutions to fix this mess. We cannot say something that's nice. It's a band-aid. It just postpones things. Right now, they don't want to deal with the debt ceiling, because it's a presidential year. So everybody's trying to postpone things. Everybody's postponing things to the next election, to the next year, to the next term, etc. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about empowering people to really know what's really happening, not what the media is telling you what's happening, and to take back your country, your company, your future, your fate, and create wealth. Because the biggest revenge against the bureaucrats and the liberals and the guys who think they have a divine right to redistribute and appropriate your wealth is to make obscene money. That's the biggest revenge. Is not to really attack them and write op-eds and say they're good, they're bad. This is all crap. It's all in the action, and you do the action by empowering yourself, knowing what's happening, and you go and create your own wealth.
Right.
What I would like to accomplish in this, Jordan,
yep,
in the next, I would say my legacy, is to create as many millionaires as possible and billionaires, empower them, teach them how to do it with them, so that we start creating a major force that's counterbalanced to the might of the government and Big Brother.
Right.
The more
and
you're
saying some powerful things. And let's delineate it for a second, because you're talking about, I believe, the opposite, in fact, of what Washington is talking about right now, which is you're weak and you're unable to take care of yourself. Let Big Brother do it. Let us create programs and committees right here in Washington and give everybody a little bit of money, just enough to keep from a revolution from happy. Just keep them a little happy. You're taking a different approach. You've been enormously successful already working in the big firms. Blackhawk itself has been enormously successful. What I admire here is in this presidential year especially, you're dedicating a huge amount of your personal time so people understand the big issue. Do you want to be taken care of, or do you want to become a millionaire yourself? Is that right?
Absolutely. This country today, unfortunately, is run by monopolies and oligopolies. The Fed is the monopoly in terms of the money issue, and the Republicans and Democrats, the parties, are the oligopoly. There is no third party, there is no third opinion. And they frankly look very much the same. They have the same backers. Goldman Sachs backs both Republicans and Democrats, both Obama and Romney. So it's not going to make any difference. It's not going to make any difference. All this stuff is a circus, is a public circus for people to think. They think they're voting differently. They're pretty much the same. They're doing the same mistakes, the same stupidities, the same power they have over the people. Exactly. This country is run by monopolies, the Fed, and oligopolies.
Well, here's what I want to do. When we come back from our break, Ziad, what I'd love to do is we're going to state what the biggest problems are. But again, when I have one definition of your book, if I could, it's a book of solutions. We're going to get right into the solutions, what you think should happen. And I think what's really important, and Ziad, what we do in this show is we teach people how to take control over their investment life, not only to make a tremendous amount of money, but to get to a point in life where you could actually become a life of service, where you can give back to the causes that are important to you, to the issues that are important to you. And I know this is really what's dominating your time right now, making sure that this country does come back to the greatness. I'll also say one other thing, just from a history book. Some of the things in your book, Economic Warfare, it could just be a history lessons for the Americans who don't know enough about their own country's history and really how it operates. So on one hand, it's a visionary book on solutions. It's also a little bit of a history lesson. I think, again, knowledge is power, and you're nailing it on the head.
Yes, exactly, Jordan, because you cannot really propose solutions that are workable unless or until you dissect what the problems are and you really know what history is all about. I go back to Alexander Hamilton, the first U.S. Secretary of Treasury, and I say exactly what was the problem with Hamilton, the first U.S. Secretary of Treasury, and how things got carried on until today. I go through cycles, I go through years, decades, trying to really understand what happened to get to where we are today, and then talk about the solutions. You really have got to know your
one
history.
One thing I want to do is we're going to bump up against a break here. What I want to do is on your website, what I love that you do is all kinds of essays on great investors, essays that help people to learn. Maybe before we take a break, if you want to share your website or any other websites, in fact, you think they should go to, and then we'll come back and we'll dig a little bit further into your views and into economic warfare. Give your websites before we go to breaks yet.
The website, the book's website is economic-warfare.com, and the company's website, my company's website, is blackhawkpartners.com.
Fantastic. What we'll do is let's take a quick break here right now. We'll come back. There's a lot to talk about. I really appreciate you spending the full hour with us. We're with Ziad Abdelnour, the president, the CEO of Blackhawk Partners, the author of Economic Warfare, folks. The rest of the hour, you're in for a treat. We just got warmed up. Take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Stocks, bonds, investment opportunities, financial news, and talk. We can help. Call us now toll-free, 866-472-5790. 866-472-5790. Voice America Business Network.
Listen for Trust Across America every week on the Voice America Variety Channel. Tune in as host Jordan Kimmel is joined by national experts in the fields of accounting, finance, organizational behavior, and sustainability, as well as companies that are applying strategies that are enabling them to be recognized as doing the right thing by the American Trust Awards. Your host Jordan Kimmel is himself a trusted professional with years of experience in applying strategies and consulting with today's leading firms. Trust Across America is heard Wednesdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Voice America Variety. Are you tired of the government squandering your tax dollars on bailouts and overpaid bureaucrats? On Free Markets with Dr. Mike Beitler and his guests explain why big government regulations are the problem and innovative businesses and free markets are the solution. Listen to Free Markets with Dr. Mike Beitler, Thursday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 7 a.m. Pacific on the Voice America Business Network.
When it comes to business, you'll find the experts here. Voice America Business Network.
You're logged on to Magna Investing with Jordan Kimmel. If you would like to call in with a question or comment for Jordan or his guest, dial toll-free at 866-472-5790. Once again, that number is 866-472-5790. Let's get back to another segment of Magna Investing. Here's Jordan Kimmel.
And welcome back to Magnet Investing. We're talking to Ziad Abdelnour, the author of Economic Warfare, the president and CEO of Blackhawk Partners. And Ziad, while your book is in fact a book of solutions and steps to go forward, what I think we really need to do is to back up, I think, the research you did on the financial crisis, in fact, the whole trajectory of the country with the Washington grabbing more and more control. We know that there's right now outrage on Wall Street. People do need, in fact, to go to jail. But I personally believe there's a lot of problems in Washington and K Street and the Lobbyist. You mentioned it in the beginning when we got started. But, you know, these guys are changing hats. I know you're already working on another book, but I'd love you, to get your take on whether it's Washington or Wall Street or some corruption between the two.
Well, there is a revolving door between Washington and Wall Street that's been going on for years. People in power in Washington or Wall Street move from one place to the other, from Goldman to the Secretary of Treasury and vice versa, etc. And as a matter of fact, Jordan, this is going to be the subject of my next book. I'm going to name the 150 people who are using this revolving door to broker for power and for control and for influence, and tell you about each one of them. Nobody knows who they are. Very few people know who they are. This story needs to be told. To come back to that issue, look, whose fault it is? I really believe the culprit here, the major culprit, is the U.S. government, Washington, and then Wall Street. Why? Because they really set and make all the rules. It's like you give a child, a 5-year-old kid, a gun and tell him not to use the gun. He's going to use the gun. Wall Street guys are here to make a buck. They will milk the system to make a buck. When you give them the power to leverage their balance sheet 30 to 35 times, they will use it. When you give them the power to go after transactions or instruments that they don't know much about, but where they can make a fortune, they're going to use it. And on top of it, if you tell them, guys, don't worry about it. Even if you use it and you mess up, we'll bail you out. And that's what happened.
Right. You just put your finger on something, and you talk about it in the book. It's a trajectory just in our short history of long-term capital. The same guys who actually got in the room and bailed them out are now even in a higher position of authority. And so it's this whole idea, heads I win, tails I win, and you lose. And I think that's the thing, Ziad, that has the public so outraged. While the public is hurting and jobs are an issue, it's the central banks, these big banks that have been bailed out, and then almost refusing to lend.
This is what I called crony capitalism. Crony capitalism versus capitalism. In capitalism, my definition, you cannot have a safety net. Now they want to control the upside you make. Oh, it's not fair for you to make that kind of money. But they want to limit also the downside. In capitalism, there is no safety net. It's survival of the fittest. Everybody should be given the chance to make an obscene amount of money. But if you take undue risk, whether your money or client's money, and you lose, you're gone. There's no second chance. This is what I don't like, for example, and I studied all the systems here in Europe, Austrian economics, U.S. economics, etc. In the U.S. of Chapter 11, bankruptcy, this is frankly the most amazing system out there. There should not be a Chapter 11. There should be a Chapter 7. You go bankrupt, you mess up, there is no second chance. There should not be a second chance. Because what's happening today is that the people who mess up are given second and third and fourth chances at the expense of the bondholders, the creditors, the shareholders, etc. So the incompetent are rising in power and influence, and the good money, the good people, are losing. And nobody's saying anything about it. You know, this is unfortunately, we're creating a culture that rewards incompetent and people who are greedy, who are proud, and who are incompetent. Frankly, I don't mind somebody who's arrogant, but who's really good. But I really mind somebody who's arrogant and ignorant. That's lethal. And that's what's happening today.
There's a line that you follow or that you share and educate, I think is the better word in your book, where we go from the Hamilton to the progressive movement to LBJ. But if I was to tell you right now that there's a president right now appointing someone and calling him a czar for industries that failed, and he's going to now make the rules, and he's going to sit in Washington and be called a czar, would you even have believed that?
You know, this has been happening, Jordan, since the Great Depression. FDR named Kennedy, Joe Kennedy, the father of JFK, to head the SEC, to be the first chairman of the SEC. And Joe Kennedy was the biggest crook in U.S. history in terms of stock swindling and stuff like that. So you know what? It's like the feds hire a crook to deal with the bigger crooks. And that's what's happening. So, I mean, what you're saying with Obama right now has been happening, Jordan, for the last 80 years. And it hasn't changed. And nobody's doing anything to change it. Because nobody dares confronting the system. Because they're all part of the system. They're all paid by the big boys. Their salaries are tied up to the big boys. And if they ever aspire to do anything in Washington, they have to come from that establishment and use the revolving doors. What I'm proposing is to create independent millionaires and billionaires who are not dependent on Wall Street or K Street to create wealth and start imposing their influence. Give you one example. Look at Mark Zuckerberg with the IPO of Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg, with all the stuff, still controls 57% of Facebook. He's a controlling interest. Wall Street does not like this at all because they cannot control him. We need to create more maverick entrepreneurs, uncontrollable like Mark Zuckerberg, to piss off Wall Street and let them know they don't run it, they don't call the shots. And the same thing with Washington. What I'm really proposing is truly revolutionary.
Which should be stronger long term? Would it be a democracy with a free market, or would it be a socialism approach? And I love one of the quotes in your book, you know, that I actually wrote down and I circled, I benchmarked. Socialism is equal sharing of misery.
Yes, absolutely.
And share. I mean, the whole idea is that if we're going to allow someone, I think this is where we need to really frame the election. People, obviously, one of the great things about this country is they could vote either way they want. But I think if it's framed properly and understood properly, I think that we maybe have that moment of crystallization of change where people will stand up and say, I want to take care of myself. I don't want to be taken care of from Washington.
Washington, you remember Reagan's story. If you really think about the government is going to take care of you, you're delusional. They don't take care of you. They want bigger spending, bigger power, bigger influence. They use us all as pawns. Look, I'm not talking about a conspiracy theory here. I don't believe in conspiracy theory. These are facts. These are facts. Study history, look at what's happened throughout the years, and you'll see a pattern that's been going on forever, on and on. But people today, unfortunately, have ADD, attention deficit disorder. They don't read. They don't do any due diligence, whether making investments, financing their future, etc. It's all sound bites. Because this guy said this or that guy said that, he must be right because he's a prominent guy within a prominent firm. Or because he's a prominent individual who always comes on TV, etc. This is a problem. But this is the problem with guys like Madoff, Corzine, and all these kind of guys. We hand them money. We don't do any due diligence on them because they pamper us with their wealth and with their surroundings. Most of the people do more due diligence on buying their next car or furniture than by handing $30 or $50 million to Madoff or Corzine or the likes. That's the problem. The problem is that people today are too lazy to do anything. They want to be entertained. Americans today, unfortunately, want to be entertained. You do something entertaining for them, you know what? You're going to make them very happy. Look at all the movies. Some of the movies were really, it's like crazy movies that don't mean anything, that go and make in the box office $1 billion. There's no substance to the movie. It's all fiction but entertaining.
Right.
It shows you exactly how Americans think. And
let me share with you, this show for 7 years, what we've refused to do is to be the stock of the day, the sector of the day, the idea of the day. We leave that to the other folks. This is about identifying authors, books, thought leaders, the most successful. What we're going to do when we come back from this segment is actually share with the listeners why, in fact, they need to listen to you, what you've done professionally, what you're thinking about with the markets. And if I was going to say there's a book to read, one of the most important books that needs to be read and read before October, read Economic Warfare. Ziad, I don't like to just overly praise people. I think everyone's got to have their own opinion. That's just why they need to read the book, digest it, take what they can from it, learn from it, and understand history and understand where we're going. We're going to take a quick break here right now. Before we go to the break again, give us both of the websites, the book, the website, and share a little bit also with Blackhawk. You're not using it. You're only working with some of the wealthiest families in the world. We have to make it clear to the listeners this is not a promotion for your investment services. In fact, not even available for most investors. Tell us what you're trying to do on the website in terms of the education, and give us the websites.
Look, Jordan, we're not taking any money from anyone. We don't manage money from retail investors. I only deal with 23 very affluent families, family offices from all over the world. So the price of entry is very, very high and not accessible to 99.9% of the people. That's one. I'm not trying to sell a stock, a bond, to sell anything. I'm not even trying. I really don't care how many copies I sell. What I care about is spreading the message around. I didn't write this book for the money. I wrote this book to get the message across, to change the landscape of what's happening today. I want the book to be a game changer. And if you read it thoroughly, it will be a game changer because you will see things and hear about things that you did not read in any book out there. It's pretty radical, yes. But you know what? When you have cancer, you don't cure it with Band-Aids. You cure it with incisions, with operations. This book is about how to surgically do an operation and take back your country, your future, and create wealth and empower Americans. This was it because I love this country. I've been here for 30 years. This country gave me a lot, and I'm a patriot to the truest sense of the word. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not running for office. I'm not selling anything. I just need to get the message across.
Well, this is why I'm having you on here. I appreciate the full hour here. Ziad, this is a powerful hour. I think they'll read the book, they'll get the message. What I want to do when we come back, I want to get a little bit into your investment philosophies and a little bit more of what's driving your message. We're going to be right back after a quick break. We're with Ziad Abdelnour, author, Economic Warfare, the CEO and president of Blackhawk Partners in New York City. We'll be right back after this quick break.
Whether the market's up or down, or if you're looking to improve your portfolio, our experts are ready to talk to you. Call now toll free 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Voice America Business Network.
Listen for Trust Across America every week on the Voice America Variety Channel. Tune in as host Jordan Kimmel is joined by national experts in the fields of accounting, finance, organizational behavior, and sustainability, as well as companies that are applying strategies that are enabling them to be recognized as doing the right thing by the American Trust Awards. Your host Jordan Kimmel is himself a trusted professional with years of experience in applying strategies and consulting with today's leading firms. Trust Across America is heard Wednesdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Voice America Variety. These days, everyone is looking for information on staying young, healthy, and fit. The Voice America Health and Wellness Network is here to help you on your quest to better health and a better you. We talk about everything from diet, fitness, and aging to substance abuse, personal growth, mental health, and much more. Learn from our experts who cover health and wellness from traditional and holistic perspectives. Tune in to the Voice America Health and Wellness Network. Healthy living starts here.
When it comes to business, you'll find the experts here. Voice America Business Network.
You're logged on to Magna Investing with Jordan Kimmel. If you would like to call in with a question or comment for Jordan or his guest, dial toll-free at 866-472-5790. Once again, that number is 866-472-5790. Let's get back to another segment of Magna Investing. Here's Jordan Kimmel.
And welcome back to Magna Investing. We're spending the full hour here with Ziad Abdelnour, the author of Economic Warfare and the president and CEO of Blackhawk Partners in New York City. And Ziad, you said something that is very meaningful to me earlier about people not getting enough information, taking the time to do enough due diligence. Well, you're in kind of a unique position with contacts and relationships around the world to get your intelligence. And I'd like you to talk a little bit about the level of due diligence and intelligence you think you need to operate with and what that actual insight is telling you on a more longer-term direction here right now, meaning we're not interested in the next week. You're advising incredibly wealthy families for the next market cycles, if you will. So talk to us about the need to do intelligence, even if you don't have the resources your firm has.
Well, I'll tell you, a lot of people take things very nonchalantly. Investing money, look, I never take myself seriously, but I take business and life very seriously. A lot of people, they do exactly the reverse. They think they're too important, and when it comes to business and life matters, they take it nonchalantly. When you have cancer, you don't take the opinion of one doctor. You go and see as many doctors as you can because it's a question of life and death. Well, the same thing when investing your money. You're going to have to seek the opinion of a lot of people, not because Warren Buffett, who's a billionaire, invested in this, meaning he's right, because he's Warren Buffett. Mm-hmm. So what? Even Warren Buffett makes mistakes. A lot of people, they don't like to challenge things. They don't like to challenge the authority. Like Trump does this, Warren Buffett does that. It's like they are the messiahs. They know it all. No. They attend the seminar by Trump or Buffett or this and that. They think they've learned everything. No. You have to really dig much deeper than what people tell you, than what you read in the papers, etc. Get as many opinions as you want from both sides of the fence and make an informed decision. You may sometimes make the right decision, but you will learn how to gather the information. Sometimes all the answers are hidden in footnotes and here and there. They're much more subtle than you think. So take this matter very seriously. A lot of people don't, because they think they don't have the time. Yes, they have the time to spend 4 or 5 hours on TV every day watching some stupid show of dance and singing and stuff like that, but they can't spend half an hour a day doing their due diligence.
Right. Well, let me share something, Ziad. I don't offer an hour to a lot of people. One of the few people that was offered a full hour was someone I consider actually one of today's greatest living investors, and that's Jimmy Rogers. Mm-hmm. And he talked about the enormous amount of reading and due diligence he would do before he started to take positions. And I know that, reading your book, we'd all want to hear a happy story that the stock market's going to do great right now and the bond market is going to do great right now. I know you don't really share that opinion at all. And maybe part of it is the fact that this trust has been broken down, and people, even if they find a good company, they don't trust people. And then something happened just this year, which I think was one of the most egregious things of all, when we know the codes and rules and the ironclad laws of Wall Street. I want to talk for a minute about the shuffling of Wall Street to Washington, a guy who went from Wall Street to the political world, the governor of New Jersey, then opens up a trading firm, grabs money from a client's account, and nobody's talking about it. And I think this is part of the breakdown of the entire markets, what has happened at MF Global, and why no one's taking this to task and no one's talking about jail.
I fully agree with you. This guy should go to jail. And it's not just him. Many other guys, too. They should all go to jail. But he's protected. He has friends in the right places. Look, to come back to that, what you said about Jim Rogers, I fully agree. I don't believe in the stock market today. I don't believe in the bond market. I don't believe in the real estate market. The dollar has devalued 94% in the last 100 years, all because of the actions of the Federal Reserve. The head of the snake of it all is the Federal Reserve. Unless the Federal Reserve is reined in, is audited to death, we're not going to go anywhere. Whoever becomes president, Romney, Obama, whoever, it's not going to make any difference. Federal Reserve sets rates, runs banks, countries. Basically, they can make or break a president of the United States by saying he's doing a good job or not, etc. So
why would anybody continue to talk about, say, the independence of the Fed? And you know what's happened? I met a few people lately, and I asked them some pointed questions. Actually, a question I pointedly asked you the very day I met you about the Fed. And I believe that one thing is clear. You've done your study on where the Fed, how the Fed was created, what their very subtle powers are, what their very overreaching powers are. And I think that if I was to sum up your opinion on the Fed, it would probably be three simple words. End the Fed.
End the Fed for sure. At least audit the Fed much more extensively, if not end the Fed. Look, the Fed, there's no checks and balances over the Feds. No matter how independent it is, any entity should have checks and balances. There's no checks and balances. No president has power, no Congress, nobody has any power over the Fed. they can do whatever they please. You know, they bailed out banks like Bank of Libya. You know that?
I did not know that.
Okay. I mean, this is one of many, many. You know, I mean, we conduct a foreign policy of a certain way, and the Fed does everything their way. You know, nothing to do with what you think, with what you want, etc. That's what it is. The problem today, so stocks and bonds, why? Because we have $16 trillion in debt and going. Now they want to raise the debt ceiling, but they're waiting for the elections to finish before they raise the debt ceiling. But this war over the debt ceiling is not over yet. And we're already maxed out at $16 trillion. Okay? They're talking more about QE2 and QE3 and QE4, etc. So the value of the dollar is worthless. The debt is ramping all over. The unemployment, forget about this 8.2%. It's all played with, manufactured. I don't believe any of the numbers that are issued by the government. They play with all the numbers to accommodate a president, to get him reelected. And the naive people in the United States, diverted by their dog and pony shows on TV, don't care. That's fine, whoever comes in. You know, this is the problem, this negligence, this nonchalance, etc. So, where do you put your money today? Well, you put your money today, and I fully agree with Jim Rogers on there. I come from the same school as Jim Rogers, a guy I have tremendous respect for, is in commodities. Oil, gold, you know, I'm talking about the commodities themselves, you know, plus the stocks of the companies in that business. For example, I will go into food businesses, water, that's the new oil, you know, oil, gold, etc. These are the commodities. And, you know, Jim Rogers said this 5 years ago. I started taking the positions 5 years ago. When the dollar, or when the gold and oil were still much lower. There's still a very big ride, especially if we're going to have wars in the Middle East. And there's an impending war in the making. It's just a question of when. It will happen for sure. For sure it will happen. It's just a question of when.
Right, and this is something that I wanted to ask you about too, and we can get into that after the break. And you know, one of the things I admire what you're doing, I admire what Jim Rogers is doing. He's not looking at moving averages. He's not looking at on-balance volume. He's looking at intelligence on where are the tanks moving, where are the planes moving, what subtleties are taking place in cabinets around the world, and not this issue about if it closes below the 10-day average, I'm going to change my opinion. I think the biggest money is made by people with conviction that continue to recheck their intelligence, change their opinion when they need to. My guess is, Ziad, there'll be a time, if it's 5 years or 10 years or 15 years from now, where your views on commodities will be different, on the markets will be different, but you're not blowing with the wind. You're doing an intense amount of intelligence work and then forming opinion with the team around you. And I think that's the lesson I wanted to bring home to the listeners out there. Don't stick with the front page of the paper. Don't stick with the first 5 minutes of the news. You really need to dig and dig and dig. So when we go to break, I'll mention the first place to go is to go to Economic Warfare. Read this book and the insights that you give on your website as well. I think what you're there to do is you're there to educate and to make people better investors through education and through empowerment. And so we're going to be right back. We have one more segment. We're with Ziad Abdelnour, Economic Warfare, Blackhawk Partners. We'll be right back after this quick break.
We're always talking business. Talk to an expert. Call now toll free 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Voice America Business Network.
Listen for Trust Across America every week on the Voice America Variety Channel. Tune in as host Jordan Kimmel is joined by national experts in the fields of accounting, finance, organizational behavior, and sustainability, as well as companies that are applying strategies that are enabling them to be recognized as doing the right thing by the American Trust Awards. Your host, Jordan Kimmel, is himself a trusted professional with years of experience in applying strategies and consulting with today's leading firms. Trust Across America is heard Wednesdays at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on Voice America Variety.
Frankly Speaking About Cancer is a program designed to empower survivors and their caregivers to deal with the social and emotional challenges of cancer. Drawing on resources from wellness communities throughout America and abroad, the show will invite physicians, researchers, nurses, social workers, patients, and caregivers to share their advice on how to live a better life with cancer. Join host Kim Tibaldo, President and CEO of the Wellness Community, Tuesday afternoons at 1 p.m. Pacific Time and 4 p.m. Eastern Time on the Voice America Health and Wellness Network.
From the boardroom to you, Voice America Business Network.
You're logged on to Magna Investing with Jordan Kimmel. If you would like to call in with a question or comment for Jordan or his guest, dial toll-free at 866-472-5790. Once again, that number is 866-472-5790. Let's get back to another segment of Magna Investing. Here's Jordan Kimmel.
And welcome back to Magnet Investing. I'll tell you from my side, I've thoroughly enjoyed this hour. I hope everyone else really takes this to heart and really does some reading. We're right now talking with Ziad Abdelnour. And Ziad, I want to go back to the central part of economics for the moment, this part of, hey, there's very limited resources and we all need to just kind of make by. I think there's another opinion that says if you continue to innovate and you can continue to create wealth and you have ways of doing that, it's not a matter of this limited thing that the socialist needs to share around. I believe your whole message is about wealth creation and empowerment, and that this doesn't need to be a zero-sum game. This could be a 1 + 1 + 1 and keep going. Am I right?
Absolutely right, Jordan. It should not be a zero-sum game. On the contrary, you'll make more money by empowering people to make money as much as you, if not more. You know, you should not count who's giving more. Look, at the end of the day, you have to realize Wall Street makes their money. They make their money by doing proprietary trading. 87% of the profits of Goldman Sachs come from proprietary trading. Proprietary trading is not something they will share with you, how they gather the intelligence and how they make their investment. But I bet you a lot that most of what they invest into is what I'm saying right now, is commodity trades, etc. And the rest, you know, the 13%, the rest is basically what they say to the public, what their research department says to buy and sell. And sometimes they come, I'm not just talking about that investment bank, but in general, any investment bank against the interest of their investors, you know, in terms of what they sell. So don't listen to what Wall Street will tell you to do. You have to do your own homework because they have their own agendas. They look for their own interest first. I'm talking about all of the Wall Street firms, not just one or two. This is how they do business. And some people are naive enough to believe because my guy at this respectable firm said this to me, meaning he's right. No, they have an agenda in everything they do. So open up your eyes here. Be very careful and do your homework. And no matter who invests in this or that company, from Warren Buffett, etc., you know, it's not you know, they can make mistakes too.
Right. And look, the very example of the firms creating investment products that they actually shorted and pushed to the weak clients and helped their biggest clients create products to short is just an example of it. And I think the biggest atrocity of all, you're talking about them making their money on prop trading, and hey, if they're great traders, they make a lot of money. But in this case, if they lose a lot of money, and hey, if they lose enough, will take the money from the taxpayer and bail these guys out anyway.
That's exactly right. That's exactly the problem, is that this is not capitalism. As I said, this is crony capitalism. You know, you can't keep that. This is what the government's mistake is by putting more fuel to the fire here. So basically, Wall Street can do whatever they want, and they'll always be bailed out. What's happening right now is that you have a concentration of power in the U.S. financial structure. Like 72 or 74% of U.S. assets are held by the top banks versus 62% in the 2008, in the crisis, pre-crisis. So power is concentrated even more. If there is another mistake or there's some other thing, you're going to have, the systemic risk is much higher, and falling down is going to hurt much more. So this is what's happening today now with J.P. Morgan's loss of $2 billion a few days ago, and the government now, the SEC, going after them to regulate more and more, which is understandably so, obviously. But you're going to have more regulation, less opportunities to make money. And, look, the government is they're doing, the mistakes that are being done here,
But let me jump in on one more thought, because we're going to run out of time in the hour. There's one more thing I really wanted to get at importantly. A lot of people will say, and me being one of them, by the way, that one of the biggest problems is politicians. Now, I happen to be at your event, the Financial Policy Council event in New York City, where you brought in a congresswoman who I frankly wasn't looking forward to hearing, but she was fabulous. And the point is that there are people with solutions. We can't paint everyone with one brush.
Sure.
And the reason I'm bringing this out is because rather than complain about Washington and K Street, which I do often, you've actually created a group of strong-minded, influential people that meet together and share opinions. And this Financial Policy Council event, I think you need to be invited to it. But I want to commend you for taking that kind of approach and bringing speakers to front from all walks of life. And really, I think that's one of the things that you're doing that I have a tremendous respect for.
Exactly, Joe. The Financial Policy Council was created to bridge the gap between Washington and Wall Street. Washington has the influence, they don't have the money. Wall Street has the money, they don't have the influence. I want to create an organization that bridges the gap between the two and brings in Washington and Wall Street to talk to each other rather than talking at each other, and bring in speakers who really understand the language of finance, economics, politics, all under one roof. And that's what's been happening there. And look, obviously a book is not going to be enough. You're going to have to create movements, organizations, events, awareness to wake up the public as to where we're going and why we should go this way. I really want to make the subject of finance, high finance, economics, and politics, as interesting to Americans as sports. Everybody's enamored with their basketball game, baseball game, Super Bowl, etc. That's good. That's nice. But you know what? There are things that are much more important than that affects our lives, our future, millions of people out there. And people should be as much aware of this as who won the last game and what was the score on that game.
Well, look, I think this is the reason I wanted to bring you on today. What I'd like to do is to periodically try to bring you on more to get your updated views and to share maybe some of the speakers that are coming to your event, how people can learn more. I think that you're just, to take this amount of time that you're doing to really get this message across, to write the book. I know how much effort it takes to write books, and to how much, what you're doing. So I think it's just wonderful to dedicate your time to educate, to inform. What I'd love to do here is I'm going to throw it open to you. I know that there's just so much on your mind. I want to kind of bring it together, how we're going to empower, how we're going to bring this country back. I'm going to ask you to give us a nice close. Remind us again where they're going to find the details of your book, where they're going to find the essays and the information on your website, Ziad.
The web page for the book is economic-warfare.com. About the company, Blackhawk Partners, the website is blackhawkpartners.com. And about the think tank that I've created, Financial Policy Council.org is the website. It's 501c3, nonprofit organization. So these are the three websites you can keep a close watch on, very active. One is a nonprofit, one is a profit, and one is an educational, which is the book. The book, I really plan to write 5 similar books this decade, Economic Warfare 2, 3, 4, 5, in addition to this one. And I plan also to turn them into movies, like Wall Street, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, whatever. Look, at the end of the day, all of this is not for the money again. It is to get the message across.
Well, that's fantastic. This has been just a fantastic hour. We'll remind people that this link is going to be available to blast around, to continue to share the information. It's not often, Ziad, I ask someone to come on for a full hour. I'm totally appreciative of your time. I think this is a fantastic hour spent. Folks, what I want you to do out there is take your time, do what we're talking about. You need to read. You need to get educated. You got to move past the headlines. One more time, a big thank you for Ziad Abdelnour. Read the book, Economic Warfare. Check out the website, Blackhawk Partners. Have a great week ahead. We'll see you next week right here on Magnet Investing. One more time for you, Ziad. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you so much, Jordan.
All righty, folks. Take care. We'll see you next week. Have a wonderful week ahead.
The Voice America Business Channel would like to thank you for logging on to Magnet Investing with Jordan Kimmel. Tune in each and every Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern Time for another exciting hour of Magnet Investing right here on the Bottom Line in Business Talk, the Voice America Business Channel.